brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.
From his ethereal fabric sculptures, to his public installations, to his more intimate drawings, Ho Suh has created a body of work that is undeniably unique.
He has developed a signature style of work, and when one sees his work, one immediately knows this is work by Ho Suh.
Tapping into his own history of migration from South Korea to the United States, his art can be both an intensely visual and a deeply personal experience for anyone who encounters it.
He is a magician. He has the ability to evoke emotions in a visitor that is unlike any other experience.
He's able to tap in emotionally to something that I think so many of us have experienced, and that's a sense of longing, of desire for the comfort, the feeling that we know as home.
It's clear to understand, and a very simple approach, however very profound meaning.
The more and more I work, I think my art and the life merges. I don't know how I would make anything without my own experience.
In the middle of the UC San Diego campus sits an unexpected sight. This is Fallen Star, one of Ho Suh's most well-known works of public art. It is made to look as if a typical family home from the East Coast had flown and landed on top of the engineering building, together with its garden.
I wanted to make something that addresses this campus, because most of the students probably left their home for the first time and come here to study, and pretty much everybody has been displaced. So that whole experience going into the slanted house makes you very disoriented, physically and psychologically. And then that's the kind of feeling that I wanted to create, to talk about the idea of the displacement.
Even though the house may look like any home from the East Coast, the work is in fact grounded by Ho's own history of displacement, having uprooted himself from South Korea and moving to Providence in the East Coast when he was 29. It's a theme that runs in many of his works.
We can all relate to the idea of home. Many of us are moving around constantly from one environment to another. He treats the idea of home in a very personal way because he charts his own movement, but he does this in a way that many, many people can appreciate and relate to.
Ho was born in 1962 and raised in Seoul, South Korea. Before coming to the United States, Ho was already a working artist with an undergraduate and master's degree in traditional Korean painting.
I grew up in a very artistic family environment because my father is a painter and my mother has extensive knowledge in Korean cultural heritage. So I was just very naturally exposed to the artistic background, and I think that's probably why I end up being an artist.
He moved to Providence in 1991. With just a basic understanding of English and no real plans for his future, he decided to enroll in the painting program at the Rhode Island School of Design, but as a sophomore.
Nobody accepted me, no school accepted me, but the undergraduate program at Rhode Island School of Design, so I had no choice but going to the RISD.
Despite having to start from scratch again, Ho's time at RISD would have a profound impact on his artistic developments. It was here that he learnt about sculpture.
At RISD, you have to take one non-major elective course per each semester. So I ended up choosing figure in contemporary sculpture. And I thought I would maybe learn making figurative sculpture, which I really didn't like to do. But it turned out to be very conceptual, and that class was responsible for me switching from painting to the sculpture.
At RISD, Do-ho created his first major sculpture called Metal Jacket, made entirely out of military dog tags.
His work very much reflects his personal experience. As a young man, he served in the military in Korea, and this manifests itself early on, where he uses dog tags to create a giant sculpture that culminates in a Christ figure or some kind of religious figure.
The work was made just after the LA riots in 1992, which erupted when the police officers involved in the beating of Rodney King were acquitted. But in the ensuing chaos, the media instead focused on Koreans aggressively protecting their stores from looters, which to many Korean Americans was harmful and one-sided and only intensified racial tensions.
For me, it was kind of a wake-up call. I started to see myself as a Korean within a much larger context of the United States, which consists of, many different cultures and races. So that was very unsettling.
He was thinking very much about this relationship of the individual to the group and how a person can become subsumed within a group and can bend to the will of a collective body. So that, for him, was a very personal idea based on his own experience, but it also is a very universal idea. Again, it's something that we all relate to.
He often used very tiny figure, but it's collective effort, making something kind of big pieces. He transformed his kind of social practice and the question of identity to the visual.
He's thought a lot about philosophy, about Buddhist ideas of karma, and the ways in which we are all interconnected. He's made a lot of work, figurative work, that deals very much with these ideas. And he's posed this as a question, where does the individual end? Like, where does one person end and the next begins?
But the work that would truly set Do-ho apart came in 1999, just after he finished his master's degree at Yale University. It was the first of his iconic architectural sculptures, a one-to-one scale replica of his childhood home, rendered entirely in fabric.
I think the experience of a Do-ho fabric sculpture is one that a visitor probably never forgets. You can see through it, you can feel the breeze or the current move through it. It becomes an incredible hybrid of a kind of ghosted space and a physical reality. And it's a really tremendous experience to be in one of those spaces.
My childhood home was very important and still important to me. It's such a special place. My fabric series was not really about recreating the physical space. It was more about transporting the memory of the space. So it's a kind of intangible quality. I thought the fabric, which is almost like a veil, because that's what I wanted to deal with, and that's wanted to bring with me from one place to the other. So for that reason, I chose fabric.
I do think he's really captured the sense of longing, the idea of memory. A memory is something that exists for us kind of almost in fantasy. You can't recreate it, you can't make it physical again. And I think the fabric sculptures echo that really beautifully.
His fabric series has expanded to include more spaces of personal significance to Do-ho, from his boarding house in Providence to his apartments in New York.
Every time it's kind of based on where he lived, but it's also mobile, light, so it's very easy to move together with him. So always his home is with him.
And contrary to popular belief, Do-ho's fabric sculptures are not exact replicas.
From the beginning, I knew it would not be exact. Probably it's like maybe 80% accurate, but it's enough for me to be reminded of the actual space and the time I've been in that space.
Would you call yourself sentimental?
Or I don't know. You think I'm sentimental? I mean, I think why I want to holding on to memory so much is one thing to think about, but maybe what we are is just all about the memories, our existence itself.
After the break, Do-ho gives us a sneak preview of his latest work.
Ideas. Ideas.
Even though artist Ho Suh now lives in London, he still works out of the same New York apartment he moved into in 1997, shortly after he graduated from Yale University. It's a personal space that still features prominently in his architectural works.
Well, everything started from here. I've been keeping my studio. Even if I spend more time in London, it's, 400 square feet, very tiny place. But so many things happened in that space. It's a big part of my life, the whole New York and particularly this apartment.
Do-ho has returned from London to work on a new project about his apartment.
Welcome, this is my studio and apartment.
But instead of using fabric, he's wrapped the entire space with paper and is making a life-sized rubbing of it.
The rubbing does something different because the rubbing captures the texture. So in a way, it is more accurate than fabric pieces. Once it's all done, I'm going to peel this paper from the space and transport it from here to the other place to recreate the space. The process of rubbing is literally caressing the surface with a pencil, and it's a gesture of loving. I'm constantly reminded by the details of the space, like the times that I spent in the space and little things that I thought I've completely forgot about. And when I discover those things, it's quite delightful. It's exactly why I have been doing rubbings in the space, and hopefully I can take these things with me and it will become the veil of memories.
I had the chance with him to go and visit that space. It was a tremendously moving experience. This idea of creating a rubbing of this space, of this kind of constant caressing of this space that he felt was home for him. To be in that space and to feel all of the love and time and devotion that's gone into making that was really tremendously moving.
This is not Do-ho's first rubbing work. In 2012, he created a series of rubbings to honor the Gwangju massacre for the Gwangju Biennale in South Korea. In May 1980, when South Korea was under military rule, students and civilians protesting for democracy were gunned down by the army, leading to hundreds of deaths.
I was a high school student back then, and Gwangju is only 3 hours away from Seoul, but things were censored, and I didn't want to take the project lightly, as if I knew, what happened in Gwangju. Instead, I wanted to consider me as a blind.
Do-ho made 3 rubbings in forgotten spaces around Gwangju, one of which was a performative piece where Do-ho and his assistants rubbed a room blindfolded.
The interesting part of the rubbing is that you put the piece of paper on the area that you want to rub. That's actually an act of erasing. And then you started to bring it back. So The blindfolded rubbing project was really about being in Gwangju, where these tragic things happen, and then trying to grasp what happened there through the process of art making.
There is an honesty in his art. His art is completely without artifice. It is completely without bombast. He's not an artist who is interested in pronouncing dictates. Do-ho is someone who is interested in engaging in a one-by-one way. For all of Do-ho's ambition, he's a humble artist.
Do-ho has been working on the rubbing of his New York apartment for nearly 3 years. It'll take him another 8 months or more to finish it.
Okay, this is my studio. Probably among all 3 spaces, this is the probably closest to the completion. This is kitchen, and this is bathroom. I'll turn the lights on. We covered, and then we realized we need a bathroom and toilet and whatever. So we cut some parts of the sink and the toilet bowl. You can see we're literally living in this space. It's been for a while. I think it's more than 2 years that we've been doing something like this in this space.
For Do-ho, the project has taken on a different meaning since his landlord, Arthur, who lived upstairs, passed away earlier in the year. He hopes to expand his rubbing project to cover the entire building as a way of remembering his friendship with Arthur.
Do-ho and his landlord had a really special relationship. The landlord, while not necessarily an art person or really involved in art, was tremendously interested in what Do-ho was doing, was really affected by it, and again, was part of Do-ho's feeling that New York was home. He had this person upstairs that I think was, in a way, a gentle contact for him, someone who cared about him and really tried to understand what he was doing.
From the beginning to the end, he was supporting me, and if he was a difficult landlord, none of these projects I have made last 20 years could have been possible. So actually I owe a lot to him. Someone may say it's a self-indulgent project, but I think every artist, even whether they're a political artist or totally conceptual artist, it's all coming from the artist's experience and their lives. So for me, I don't know how I would make anything without my own experience.
Coming up, Do-ho visits Singapore for a residency and lets us in on some of his latest experiments. Korean-born artist Ho Suh is in Singapore for a residency at the Singapore Tyler Print Institute. Even if you didn't know he was in town, you might guess at his presence by the sight of various objects wrapped in paper.
So these are light switches. For me, it takes a while to fully understand the space and then feel comfortable with this new environment. So instead of wrapping or rubbing entire space, I only decided to these elements that I touch everyday basis, and then I can recreate the sense of the space with the elements.
This is Do-ho's second residency at STPI. In his first residency here, Do-ho experimented with new ways of making drawings, resulting in an unexpected but significant body of work.
He's made what he calls thread drawings, which are these beautiful sewn drawings.
There was a breakthrough. I started to use the thread as a drawing medium, and since then I was able to develop huge body of thread drawing series, which it opens up the totally different dimensions in my practice.
Do-ho is now experimenting with the idea of compressing his signature architectural pieces into 2D drawings, using a special material called gelatin tissue, which can fuse with paper when wet. This one is a replica of the gate to his childhood home.
This is my piece. It's on this transparent plastic, and this is the paper that is made like a couple of hours ago, so it's still wet. And this is the barrier that protects the piece from the moisture in the water. We're trying to control the shape of the gate so that some areas could be still dry and not completely fused with the water. So that's what we're doing right now.
Once Do-ho is happy with the placement of the work, the plastic is removed and the work is vacuumed flat, allowing the gelatin tissue to fuse properly with the wet paper.
It's always, there's a surprise when it's dried. We have to see, when it's come out from the dryer.
It will take at least a week for the work to dry. It's still a process that needs fine-tuning. Some of the results were hits, some were misses, but so far, Do-ho is happy with how his experiments have turned out.
This staircase is the one that connects my apartment to my landlord place upstairs. This staircase actually is a significant element for the friendship between me and my old landlord. So this is actually the same staircase, but transferred onto the paper. This is successful, and I'm very happy about it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to collapse three-dimensional space onto two-dimension, and then it becomes more transportable. And the whole idea of making fabric architecture pieces was about moving or transporting my very personal and intimate spaces. So I'm actually doing a similar thing in a different medium and different ways.
He manages to create a very personal iconography in his work, but one that is also universal. And I think he does this in a way that is distinctive from that of his peers and contemporaries. I don't think anybody else does this quite in the way he does.
I think he's managed to find a way of addressing a feeling, addressing a sensibility, a longing that is so universal. So many people can see this work and really be affected by it. And he's able to make something that's so tremendously beautiful that its visual after-image can stay with you for a very long time after you see it.
I try to see and understand life through art. It happened to be art to do that, and I don't know why. I think it's kind of destiny. I don't know what I'm going to understand and learn and realize at the end, but it's a continuous, almost like breathing. So I'll just continue to make art until I die.
Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.